Think back to your earliest memory. Maybe a birthday. Maybe a beach. Maybe your mother's face leaning over a crib. Now ask yourself how old you were. Chances are you can't go earlier than 3 or 4 years old. But here's the strange part. Your brain was working long before that. It was recording, processing, reacting. So where did those years go? For decades, scientists assumed babies simply couldn't form memories. Their brains were too undeveloped, too raw, too new. But that explanation has a problem. Babies can learn. They recognize faces within days. They remember the smell of their mother. They flinch at sounds they heard before. Something is being stored. So why can't you access any of it? The answer isn't that the memories don't exist. The answer is stranger than that. Your brain, in its first years of life, is undergoing one of the fastest construction projects in the natural world. Neurons are forming at a staggering rate. Billions of new connections every single day. Researcher Patricia Bauer, who has spent her career studying early memory, found that infants as young as 6 months can retain information for days, sometimes weeks. So the storage system works. The problem is something else entirely. Picture a library being built while people are already trying to use it. Shelves go up, then get torn down, then rebuilt in a different room. Any books placed on those shelves during construction don't disappear, but the map to find them gets rewritten so many times that the original location becomes impossible to trace. This is roughly what happens inside your skull during early childhood. This phenomenon has a name: childhood amnesia. And it doesn't just affect a few unlucky people, it affects almost everyone, in almost every culture, in almost the exact same way. The cutoff is remarkably consistent. Most adults' earliest memories cluster between ages 3 and 4. Why would something so universal happen? One major piece of the puzzle is a brain structure called the hippocampus. Think of it as the brain's filing system. It doesn't create memories. It organizes them, tags them, and links them to time and place. In infants, the hippocampus is still under heavy construction. New neurons are being added so rapidly that older connections get pushed aside before they can be properly filed. Neuroscientist Paul Franklin ran an experiment that made this strikingly clear. He found that boosting the rate of new neuron growth in young mice caused them to forget things faster. Slowing that growth down helped memories stick longer. The very process that makes a young brain so good at learning new things is the same process that erases the records of what came before. There's a second piece to this puzzle, and it has to do with language. Before you could speak, you experienced the world without words. No labels for happy, no labels for scared, no labels for "this is my room" or "this is my mother." Memories, especially the kind you can consciously recall and describe later, tend to be organized around language and narrative. A memory needs a story to attach itself to. Without words, an experience can still leave a trace, but it has nowhere to be filed in a way your older, language-using brain can later retrieve. Psychologist Carol Peterson has spent years interviewing young children about their earliest memories, then returning years later to ask them again. The results are unsettling. Children who could vividly describe an event at age 4 often had no memory of it at age 8. The memory wasn't gone immediately. It faded over time, the way ink fades from paper left in the sun. So if your earliest memories aren't truly the earliest things that happened to you, what are they? For many people, the very first memory isn't a memory at all. It's a reconstruction, a photograph seen many times, a story told at family gatherings, a scene described so often that your brain built an image to match the words and then filed that image away, as if you had experienced it yourself. Researchers call this phenomenon a memory of a memory. It feels real. It feels like yours. But its true origin may be a second-hand account. This doesn't mean your early years left no trace on you. Far from it. Even without conscious memories, those years shaped how you respond to comfort, to stress, to strangers, to love. Infants form attachment patterns long before they can describe them. The emotional architecture gets built first. The narrative gets added later, once the hippocampus matures enough to keep a stable record. There's something almost poetic about this. The years when you were most vulnerable, most dependent, most shaped by the people around you are the years you can't consciously revisit. You carry them, but you can't replay them. They exist in you the way a foundation exists in a building. You can't see it once the house is built, but everything stands on top of it. Now think about today. Think about how much of your daily life slips away the same way. The conversation you had yesterday morning, the meal you ate 3 days ago, the 100 small moments that fill an ordinary afternoon. Most of them won't survive the week. Your brain is still doing, on a smaller scale, what it did in your first years of life. Filtering, discarding, keeping only what seems to matter. So maybe the question isn't really why you can't remember being a baby. Maybe the real question is why you assume you should be able to remember anything at all. Memory was never meant to be a complete record. It was meant to be useful. A tool for navigating what's ahead, built from fragments of what came before. The blank years at the start of your life aren't a flaw in the system. They're the clearest example of how the system actually works. You were there. You felt things. You learned things. The world left its mark on you before you ever had the words to describe it. And in a quiet way, it's still happening right now. Somewhere in the next few years, today will become one of those days you can no longer recall. The only difference is that this time, you already know it.